This video is sponsored by Sweetwater. More on that later. When you're just starting out, it's not uncommon to be completely confused about how to get the best audio in and out of your computer. Should you get a standalone audio interface? Or should you get a mixer with a built-in audio interface? A big cause of confusion is the sheer amount that's out there. There's lots of different audio interfaces, there's lots of different mixers, some have different features, they're all aimed at different applications. How do you choose? And also, it feels pretty important because an audio interface or mixer, whatever you use, is going to be the central hub of your studio or how you record yourself. But it's all down to your workflow. And in this video, we're going to go over the difference between an audio interface and a mixer with built-in audio interface features. Now stick around to the end because there is a third option, and we're going to talk about that, which could be the best of both worlds. Hi, my name's JP. Welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, we talk about studio tech, live looping, and live streaming for musicians. So if that's something that you're interested in, then give this video a thumbs up, or even click the subscribe button and hit the bell, and you'll know when the next video goes live. So what are we talking about anyway? We're going to compare standalone audio interfaces, things like the Focusrite Scarlett 4i4, the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X, or something like this. This is the Arturia Minifuse 4. Now I've done a video on this separately if you want to go and check it out, and we're going to compare those things to things like mixers with a built-in audio interface. So things like the PreSonus Studio Live AR8C, the Zoom Live Track L8, and something like this. This is the Mackie Pro FX12 version 3. Now, they both serve as audio input and output devices, basically meaning allowing your computer to record the input, whether you plug in a microphone or whether you plug in a guitar or a keyboard, and also as an output so you can hear it back. Now, some devices will give you things like a line input so you can plug in jacks, some will give you an XLR input so you can plug in microphones, and some will give you a combi so you can plug in both. They both offer headphone outputs so you can listen to yourself or other people can listen as well. And now both a standalone audio interface and a mixer with an audio interface as well, or a USB on the back, both come with their own software. Now, when we're talking about audio interfaces, we're talking about recording into the inputs. This is a 4-in, so we've got 2 on the front and we've got 2 on the back. And we can control the gain on a couple of them, and we can also put on things like 48 volts phantom power. And that's about it, because the whole point of an audio interface is to record at the highest quality it can do. With a 2 or 4-in, you would normally record 1 or 2 instruments at the same time, or if you've got an audio interface that's massive, then you can do things like an 8-in or a 12-in or a 16-in to record your whole band. Now, within the category of audio interfaces, there is an entire range of them, and they also come with software, from ultra simple solutions to be on the go with only 1 or maybe 2 inputs, to pro level options with dozens of inputs, built-in audio processing, and other advanced features. Now, as you're starting out, don't worry too much about the advanced special features yet, but now is the time to determine whether you're better off with an audio interface or if you're better off with a mixer that has a built-in audio interface. Now, instead of scrolling through pages of stuff, watching hundreds of YouTube channels about individual reviews on certain items, take a step back. What we need to look at is what you want to accomplish. Are we recording just a solo artist, or maybe yourself, recording 1 or 2 things at the same time, just maybe a vocal and a guitar, or are we recording the whole band? In any case, for all of this, the first thing would be, how many inputs do you need? Now, me as a solo artist, I actually record probably no more than 2 or 3 things at the same time. So something like this is fantastic and enough for me. I can record my microphone, my guitar, I can plug my keyboards in at the back, and I can switch this out for a bass, or switch this out for a synthesizer and plug it in left and right, because I'm never recording more than 2 or 3 inputs at the same time. However, if you're even a duo or above, you may be recording multiple instruments and multiple microphones. Therefore, a couple of things you'll need to have a think about. How many inputs we've discussed. The other thing is how many headphones. So you might need to record things and everyone have a listen. Also, how are you going to monitor that recording if there's more than one of you? Are we also going to need the inputs for doing streaming? Are we streaming audio or audio and video? Or are you actually going to be doing podcasts? And are you going to be recording them? And if you are you going to be doing that again on your own, or are you going to have some guests? And the other thing to think about is a thing called LoopBack. This is mainly for people who want to do streaming as well as recording, and how are you going to get the audio out of the computer from your digital audio workstation to Twitch or to ReStream or to OBS. The other thing to think about is whether you'd prefer to handle the presets and the audio through a screen or whether you want physical controls right next to you. Now get a piece of paper and a pen and start writing down what inputs you need, how many headphones, whether you need LoopBack, whether you're streaming, whether you want to control it manually, whether you want to control it with software. This starts narrowing down to understand what you need. But it actually doesn't answer the question whether you need an audio interface or a mixer with a built-in audio interface. And that is what this video is about. Let's start with these. An audio interface. Now, while a standalone audio interface is not actually meant to mimic a mixer, practically every audio interface now comes with mixing software, which will give you mixer-like controls for your inputs and your outputs, but they're just not physical. You're going to have to use your computer or your tablet, whatever you're using, to control them. And you're going to need that to set up things like headphone mixers for artists, to manage the inputs and the outputs, and also for other regular tasks that you're going to do. So in other words, you do actually get mixer-like controls with an audio interface, but you just need the software to control it. There are a small number of audio interfaces that will let you apply effects directly from the audio interface itself. They have buttons on them. A great example of this is the Universal Audio Volt 276, which allows you to add 1176 compression just by pressing a couple of buttons directly on the audio interface itself. Now, whether that's convenient or not is totally up to your workflow. If you're a music producer and you're doing recording all the time in your digital audio workstation, then accessing a separate window on your computer or maybe your second screen to manage your audio chain before you hit record might not feel like too much of a hassle. More so than it would for a streamer who needs to change stuff on the fly live in front of their audience, whilst also trying to manage the capture card and streaming software at the same time. Another consideration is actually the form factor. An audio interface can be really small, and even the bigger ones can be rack mounted. The one I'm using right now, I'm actually using the Arturia AudioFuse Studio, and you can see with the MiniFuse 4, the controls are right in front of you. But the AudioFuse Studio, the controls are on the top. This is designed to be on a desktop specifically for recording in a studio. But with things like this, I can actually put this next door to my laptop. I could even rack mount it. I could even zip tie it under the desk just to keep it out of the way. But also it means audio interfaces are highly portable. And now with things like tablets and phones that have USB Type-C, you can plug this directly in and you could record anywhere. Now, a big benefit to actually recording with a mixer is the controls. The absolute difference between an audio interface and a mixer is we've got tangible controls, faders, buttons, dials for every input that you've got. Ow. We need to turn up a certain channel, no problem, we can do it here. Need to mute a channel? I can mute it right here. Now this is the Mackie Pro FX 12 version 3. It's a 12-in mixer. So we've got 12 different ins and we've got stereo outs. We've got different ways of routing. We've got an effects send and return, and there's loads more tangible things and tangible buttons for inserts, way more than you would get from an audio interface on its own. With an audio interface, you're going to have to use the software it comes with to do this. This also comes with built-in effects. That's why it's called the Pro FX. And you've got 24 different effects which we can apply to the different channels. This is all onboard processing, and we're shaping the sound before we even send it out. The whole point of this is to record the audio as cleanly as possible, and then you change it in the recording afterwards, or if we're using it for live streaming, to grab that audio as cleanly as possible, and then you manipulate it maybe with some audio software later on. The mixer would use in a live environment, so I could use this in a pub or in a club, but I could also use it at home because I've got physical controls. So I've got my vocals, I could have keyboards, guitars, basses, and I could actually record an entire band. But remember, there is a third option, and stick around to the end because I'm going to explain what that is. Now, one thing to actually bear in mind with mixers that have an audio interface built in, like that one does, is not all mixers are born equal. What I mean by this is not all mixers offer a multi-channel audio interface. A lot of mixers, certainly at the lower end of the budget, will give you an audio interface, but it'll end up being a 2-in, 2-out, or a 2-in, 4-out. So what that means is, of all those different channels, you're going to get a stereo out left and right. That's it. Now for the solo musician, that doesn't matter so much because we could plug everything in, all our keyboards, all our instruments into separate channels, leave it in the studio, and then you're going to record each one individually, and you're going to get a stereo out for that one instrument. or multiple instruments. Or we could use the left for the vocals and the right for the guitar, so we could record two at the same time. But if you're a band and you want to record every individual track separately, then you're going to need a mixer that does multi-channel audio interface. Things like the Solid State Logic Big 6, this will do this. This will give you multi-channels out, every single input separately into a digital audio workstation to then mix later on. Lastly, whilst we're on the primary thing of studio recording, I can actually take that mixer out to a gig. Now, the great part about that is it does have a stereo left and right, so I could just record the audio interface into my phone. With the right adapters, or with the latest phone, for example, the iPhone 15 is USB Type-C, I could plug a USB-B to USB Type-C cable in, just hit record on an audio recorder, and I've captured the whole night on the mixer as it was right then. But I can't change it afterwards. It's just a stereo mix, so you have to be aware of that. Now, things that you need to look for in both the mixer and the interface. Although they can be wildly different, there's a couple of things that are the same, and you need to be aware of this. Certainly if you're going to be working with different elements. And the first one is phantom power. An audio interface typically these days will come with 48 volts phantom power. That's not a problem, but the thing is, it will only give you phantom power to certain channels. For example, this one is 4 in, so we've got 2 on the front and 2 on the back, but the 2 on the front are XLR and will only give phantom power to the first 2. The ones on the back are jack, and of course it won't give phantom power to there. Whereas with a mixer, you can actually have a mic pre on all of these. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and technically I could have 48 volts phantom power on all of them. So if you're working with things like condenser microphones and you need 48 volts phantom power, then just make sure, whether it's audio interface or mixer, that it can deliver 48 volts phantom power to enough channels that you need. One thing to bear in mind about phantom power is its power, and you need to actually have enough power. This is highly portable, but plug this into a older phone and then try and run 48 volts phantom power from it, you'll probably get a message saying this is requiring too much power. Now, a lot of people actually use things like tablets and phones to record themselves on the go. It's highly portable, and that's a great thing. And this one actually has a separate plug for plugging in a adapter, so I could plug this into the wall to power it all up. But a lot of audio interfaces don't come with this, and they only come with USB. Make sure that you check that it will run with things like an iPad or an Android tablet or a phone with the right adapter, or it has its own power adapter to run it up separately. With mixers, predominantly, you plug them into the wall, or you can plug it into a battery generator if you're doing things like at a festival. The other thing to look at is also the stereo and the mono channels. This is a 12-channel mixer, but you'll actually notice there's not 12 channels going all the way across. The line in is 11 and 12. And then what you'll also see is you'll see 1, 2, 3, and 4, as you can see there. This one goes 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12. So they pair up the last 4 into stereos. And that is actually great for things like keyboards. So we plug a left and a right in the keyboard. I've only got 1 fader to deal with, 1 EQ to deal with, 1 effect send to deal with. But just be aware, if I plugged in a guitar on 5 and a bass on 6, they're coming out of the same signal. Stereo channel inputs are really good for things like drum machines, keyboards and synthesizers, and also line level inputs, things like media players, but not for plugging in individual mics. Have a look at the front and the back of your audio interface and your mixer when you're looking to buy one. Make sure you got enough inputs to cover the whole band. Speaking of inputs, have a look at the type of inputs. So for example, on 11 and 12, you've got a TRS mini jack for plugging in things like a phone or a MP3 player. Be aware of TRS jack and TS unbalanced jacks. So make sure you're actually plugging in a TS, which is a normal guitar, versus a TRS, which is stereo. And also, if you plug a TRS into this, it may only pick up one side. One of the newer things over the past couple of years that has become more and more frequent is a system called LoopBack. And this is something you may need to look at if you're running a Mac. Windows actually has a LoopBack audio feature, but what LoopBack does is it actually sends the computer audio, which would normally be coming out of the speakers of your computer, back into the audio interface so we can send it out for streaming. Let's say we're recording our microphone or guitar, but we've also got backing tracks coming out from a digital audio workstation, and you want the audio of all of that going into OBS or going into Twitch. A lot of audio interfaces now will give you this option for LoopBack. You can also find this in modern mixers with an audio interface built in. But if you're looking to go streaming and you need the audio from your computer and the audio interface does not feature loopback, then you're going to have to get additional software, and you'll need to bear that in mind about the level of your audio while you're streaming. Audio interfaces that do come with a loopback feature normally have the software that you can download and play around with, so you can route it without any additional purchase. Now, I said there was a third option, which could be the best of both worlds depending on your situation. There is a new range of mixers out now, which are neither an audio interface and neither a mixer, but they are both together. Things like the Mackie DLZ Creator or the Creator XS, the Zoom LiveTrack L8, and this is the Boss Gigcaster 8. These mixers are kind of like a hybrid breed. So for example, with the Boss one, it has 4 connections in, but we've also got USB in, the loopback system, an option for plugging in a media source or a phone, Bluetooth, and then also these pads, so you can play anything from backing tracks right through to sound effects for your live stream. But a lot of these mixers have extra tricks up their sleeve. This one has built-in effects. It's also touchscreen, and things like the Zoom and this also have an SD card, so you can record directly from here, multi-track or in stereo. But they're also multi-track audio interfaces, so it sounds perfect. However, this is where the hybrid bit comes in. This is touchscreen, and you'll notice there's no dials for EQ or there's no dials for your gain. That's because you do it through the touchscreen, or you do it with the combined software it comes with on your computer. Another thing to consider is headphone outs. So the Gigcaster has 4 separate outs. The Mackie DLZ and the Creator XS has 4 headphone outs. But the thing to be majorly aware of is your workflow. These two are dedicated to doing something great depending on what you need. If I need to tweak the EQ on a channel real quickly, I can do it here. Whereas if I need to do it on an audio interface, I'd need to go to the software, I need to get access to my computer. But if I'm all the way over there, my computer's here, then I need something else to control it with. And that ends up being some kind of Stream Deck or some kind of controller. Eventually that just becomes another purchase. Now, if you're interested in an audio interface or a mixer and you're in the market for one, then we have a link that's in the description box, and that'll take you to Sweetwater. This video is sponsored by Sweetwater, and thank you very much to them for sponsoring this video, because they sent me the Mackie mixer to showcase for you, and we're going to be doing a full review of that. That link is an affiliated link. If you do click it, then it helps me out, but at no additional cost to you. Now, I'm going to bring up 2 links on the screen right now. So if you're interested in the Mini Fuse 4, have a look at this video here. And if you're interested in the Boss Gigcaster, we actually have a playlist, which is over here, where we did loads of different videos, because you can do lots of different things.